the thing that VCs would ask me often, which is, Juan, is this product that you have a vitamin or a painkiller?
Hey there, friend. You're listening to the Hot Mess Hotline, and this is Stephanie Crevens. Welcome. You are totally in the right place if you are an ambitious leader who wants to pull off a big, massive, stupendous transformational project. We teach you how to lead with strategy, innovation, flexibility, and focus for new business results, digital transformation, tough decisions, and so much more. Whatever you're working on, we've got hard-earned lessons from executives to make you more adaptable and put into practice when this episode is over. Today's conversation is with my new friend, Juan Betancourt. He's the CEO of Human Intelligence, an HR enterprise software solution, kind of like Grammarly, but instead of writing tips, it surfaces tips for communication and collaboration, which I don't know about you, but every time I ask a leader, what's the number one problem on this team, they say communication, and then they say a lack of collaboration. Or sometimes there's too much collaboration and not enough doing. But Human Intelligence has got us covered because this is exactly what they solve for. Juan has not come to found this company easily. He has been a leader in HR for many decades, working at some of our nation's biggest companies. He's been a recruiting expert, and especially with executive search and so much more at these companies. He's recently been named a top 30 HR tech influencer, and he's an expert in helping organizations build high-performing teams while operationalizing inclusion and belonging. All right, let's dig into his hot mess. Let's go, my friend. Juan, tell me about your hot mess.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up two. One was a massive pivot we were forced to make. We were a recruiting software company that basically uses predictive analytics around psychometrics. So imagine giving a personality test to all your employees, seeing why people perform based on their psychology, and then using that to map people who apply and picking and selecting people based on who matches your high performers or who would add culture and complement your current culture if it's like a team hiring situation. So we were doing great, got to 1.5 million in revenue in like 3 or 4 years. I
Awesome.
put a lot of my own money into it. Yeah, it was great. It was like things were going great. And all of a sudden something called COVID hit and we lost all revenue because worse than restaurants, that they didn't lose the demand of people needing food. They just had to find new ways of getting them food. Mm-hmm. We actually woke up one day with no market, with no demand at all for recruiting software because nobody in the right mind was going to be hiring anyone, maybe other than hospitals. And so we went to zero within a month after March 7th and had to lay off half my team. I had to figure out if I wanted to invest more money. So we moved to something else, which was we took that same psychometric personality test we were using for hiring and we put it into kind of a platform to use it for the entire life cycle of the employee. So everything from hiring to onboarding to team culture to leadership to agility to career mobility to communicating better through emails and Slack and Zoom. And so we got back to another $1 million of revenue after another year and a half, but we weren't selling as fast as I thought we could have been. For example, and for every 5 meetings we had with customers, they all 5 would love the platform, but only 1 would buy it. And there's no competition. And they'd also say, it's not competition. Oh, it's like, it's not you, it's us. It's not competition. It's not, we don't have a budget. Culture is important, but there's no budget line item like there was for recruiting or for payroll because we sit within the HR software world. And so unlike the first hot mess where we were forced to just change, which sometimes it's easier when you're forced to do things, this one was harder to identify because we did get back some revenue and it was really nuanced that maybe we weren't solving a problem. And so even though we had a really cool product,
yes,
and people loved it, which only made us think we had the right product, they weren't buying it. And it took a good year and a half to realize, you know what, Juan and team, our product's awesome, but we're not solving a real problem. So we pivoted again, which was very hard, to a product using this for smarter collaboration, which is solving a specific problem after COVID, or that COVID kind of made more front and center, which is for distributed teams of 1,000 or more employees, human connection's gone down, team productivity and team collaboration is now harder when you're across many offices. So that's the module we sell. It's kind of like Grammarly where you surface tips, not for writing, but for how to connect and communicate with another human being in email, Slack, Zoom, Teams, and Outlook. And so that's where we are today. And they were two hot messes, and I've gone through two complete teams and a lot of money, and we're now finally in a good place. But it's been the hardest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Woo, woo, woo. So one of the things that I think is really compelling about this story, and the reason I wanted to bring your experience to my people, is there's an element of being forced to change because of an external factor, right? Laws change, there's a pandemic, insert a variety of things. And that tends to rally people together to solve that problem, because you have this common enemy that you kind of all know. And there's just no avoiding that external pressure usually, and that forces change. And in the second scenario, you're doing good. Like, to build $1.5 million business, like, that puts you in the top echelon of businesses in the United States, and you're doing good things. People love you. You know, a close rate of 20%, you know, that would raise my eyebrows too, and be like, that's not really high enough. But like, clearly people, you know, we got some traction here. So tell me about, what were you experiencing when you're like, I think we need to change, because like, this isn't right. Like, yeah, we're doing $1.5 million. That's great. Yeah, we got a team servicing it. Yes, people love us. But like, where were you feeling the pressure to change?
It was coming from a couple of places. One, just internally, knowing software, and you know, the unicorns out there that have a breakout product, they go 1, 3, 10, 30, 100 million, right? It's like hockey stick. We were just barely, you know, getting back to $1 million, and it was kind of flattening out. It was really hard. Also, just having so many customers tell me they love the product, but they don't have a budget, made me think we're solving for a problem that doesn't exist. Most companies have budgets for problems. If they don't have a budget for it, they probably aren't aware of it, or it doesn't exist. That was the other internal thing. But then venture capitalists, I mean, VC firms, they didn't like the metrics. They didn't like the 1 in 5 close rate with no competition. The thing that VCs would ask me often, which it's funny when you're getting asked a question that you know that you're not answering it you're answering correctly or authentically, but you know that's going to lead to like, no thank you.
Yes.
Which is, Juan, is this product that you have a vitamin or a painkiller? I must have gotten that question 20 times from venture capital firms. And upon answering that question, all 20 times they said, no, thank you. And so the reality is, we are a vitamin. You know, it's preventative. It's nice to have. It's like Grammarly. Like, if you unplug Grammarly, it's not like you have pain. If you unplug us, it's not like you have pain. Like, is it harder? Yes, but it's not like you're in the ER. And so we were a vitamin. And with culture management, culture as a service, that was that middle phase pivot. Now we're kind of between a vitamin and the painkiller. It's still a question that comes up, but we can explain it better in that, you know, most companies are already investing in these kind of collaboration platforms. So clearly, if they're investing in Microsoft Teams, Outlook, well, that must be a painkiller, but you need to communicate. And if you are distributed, it is a pain and a problem to communicate across borders and across teams. And so we are falling more into the painkiller than vitamin camp these days.
That makes sense. I've got so many questions. I'm like, where do I start with this? So any other pressures that you can remember? You said it was the internal one. It was, you know, what I also heard you say too was like, just knowing your market, knowing the possibilities of what tech could do. I heard a pressure of, you know, you're looking for funding from VC firms and you're not answering their questions satisfactorily. So they're creating a type of pressure. Any others that were kind of giving you nods that you hadn't quite landed on what this company needed to be?
There was one other. I signed up to be a startup with Gartner. And so they have all these experts who kind of know all software space. They know, you know, what the market's looking for, what their clients who are larger companies looking for. And this one guy, I'll never forget, he did look at me and said, look, Juan, I had just finished demoing the whole platform. He goes, I love your platform. It's great. One day, every company will have a culture management platform like you created. But Juan, your company is too small to sell something that big. It is a nice to have. You're not solving a problem. Or if you are one, what is the problem you solve? And he asked me, and I looked at him like, well, we help companies with culture. He goes, but that's not a problem. Companies aren't going to market saying, our culture is a problem. Come join our company. And so it was a blurred message. It was a long message. A demo would take an hour to do. Companies then they'd see a demo of an hour of all these different modules for culture management or culture. They'd say, oh my God, that's overwhelming. I didn't realize your platform was so big. We're doing these other software and implementations. We don't have bandwidth for yours right now. So we almost like created such an amazing platform that was too big that unless you're Workday, Oracle, SuccessFactors, or UKG, we're not the small little, train that's going to sell in this massive thing. And so those were also kind of, when clients are telling you, oh, it's so overwhelming, you have so much, they're all signs that, it probably wasn't going to do well. Also, I mean, here it's laughable, but with using a recruiting tool that has psychometrics to hire better, anybody understands that. If you've ever taken a personality test, you could see how it could be used for hiring better if you give it to all your current employees first.
Yes.
Right? You get even now the current one, which we're solving a problem. Oh, we're like Grammarly. We surface tips on how to communicate better through an email. For both those, you don't even have to see a demo. You actually know what we do.
Yes.
For the middle one, where I had to pivot away for in the second hot mess, can you imagine? I would find myself saying, and I'm a smart guy, but I sounded like an idiot looking back retroactively. Oh, you cannot understand what we do unless you see a demo. So imagine trying to sell something, sending outbound emails, doing an ad campaign where no one in the world will ever understand what you do unless you get them on a video to show them a demo. If you have to show a demo of your product, it's probably not going to sell very well.
Yeah. And I totally get that. Yeah. Someone who started out selling life coaching and coaching in general, like, yes, there's a process I sell, but like at the end of the day, my selling when I was a life coach, your life's purpose, like,
right? What?
Who buys that?
Aisle 7 at 7-Eleven. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Life's purpose. Thank you. Ooh, with the slushie? That'd be great. Oh my gosh. So from your perspective as a leader during this time, like how did you approach your team with, guys, this is what we gotta do? On the second pivot where it was, there's not a common enemy. Like we're comfortable being mediocre, but now you're like, guys, we got to get on the hockey stick train or something's not going to happen.
Right. On the first pivot, we didn't have a choice. We had no revenue, there was no future. And, I'm like, I can only pay you in equity right now or leave. And I had lost out my company. And the second pivot, it was tough because not everyone agreed. Half the company were the engineers who built it, who all thought, no, this is awesome. Look how great it is. And they were drinking their own Kool-Aid. Of course, the product developers thought it was great. There wasn't much kind of guarantee that going to a niche, going from selling 6 module to just pick this one around smarter collaboration. That's if we're not selling all of it, how are we going to sell more by only going to one? So it kind of, I was in retail for a while, and I finally learned the concept at a sporting goods store called Decathlon, where they used to sell all kind of sporting goods by like winter sports, summer sports, running, soccer, and in the winter sports they had ski gloves, and they had 300 SKUs. You'd walk into this aisle, picture a Home Depot side store, 200,000 SKUs, the largest sports company in the world, actually, mostly in Europe and Latin America and Asia. And so you walk into the glove aisle, and there's like 10 yards of gloves, like 30 rows. And it was almost like that with everything. They had 10,000 SKUs of bikes. They're the largest bike producer in the world. So they had this whole process, and I was an executive of the company where they were doing SKU rationalization, where they said, we're going to cut 40% of all the SKUs, get 40% of all the optionality out of it, and customers are going to buy more. And I'm thinking, no, because if you have all these products and you get rid of them, they're going to buy less.
Yes.
And sure enough, we cut SKUs by 40% in a lot of these like onesie type products like gloves. And and they increased sales by 30%. And it was a volume play. And then in the 30% you increase sales, it's higher volume and economies of scale. So your pricing goes, so margins go up. And it was just like, oh my God, what a insight, right? And so,
Yes.
I've heard phrases like, if you go niche, you get rich, right? So we went from recruiting, which was niche, to all things psychometrics for all use cases. And it was too vague, too broad, too long to demo, blah, blah, blah. And so we decided to go niche. And I had to just argue to my team these concepts, which none of them had seen before, which is counterintuitive. Like, trust me, I'm your CEO.
Yes.
Companies that go niche and solve one specific problem, they grow. I mean, look at Amazon. They did not start with retail for all things. They started with books, and then they went to movies. And so let's go and solve this one problem. And instead of going after all companies, Fortune 500 to 10,000 employees to 5,000 down to 500 down to 20-person startups, let's only focus on companies with 2,000 employees or more, which is 20,000 in the US. Which, God, when you think you have 20 million, you're only going to focus on 20,000, you think, oh my God, our whole market's going away. But no, it's actually easier to sell to 20,000 and have a consistent message and speak to their need versus trying to sell to everyone. And that's a hard lesson, right? Because it's just so counterintuitive for my team. And so a lot of it was just trust me, right? I'm successful. I've been successful. I take big bets, and 3 or 4 of them I'm usually right. We've been wrong on 2, so odds are this one should work.
That's how betting works. Yeah, it's better in Vegas.
and also just presenting the pressure points from the VCs, the pressure point from the Gartner guy, the pressure point from the data, internal data that show we're only closing 1 of 5 deals, and we weren't losing the competition. So something's not working. And basically, if we continue the way we are, we will always be this mediocre small company that never grows. None of us are working 7 days a week, for that. We're looking to sell this thing for $500 million one day, right? Like, we're not looking to just be a $2 or $3 million, chug along company.
Yes. Yeah. That makes so much sense. And I'm thinking from the consumer perspective of the economics of choice. I'm like having flashbacks to my economics 201 class, but it's something about there is such a thing as too much choice.
Too much choice.
That stops the decision-making process.
Correct. And we were finding that I found myself in pitches where they'd say, show us this, and we'd show them one module, and then they'd see something else, like, wait, do you do this too? I'm like, yeah, let's show you that. And then like, oh, what else do you do? And they're like, oh wow, that's too much. We're like, oh well, let's go back to the one you wanted. But by then you've lost them. It's like, oh well, no, your platform's so overwhelming and big. No, but we can turn everything off. All you need is the one. Yeah, technically that's true, but for them now it's like a massive platform.
Yes. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think about, from your team's perspective, probably all they know about consumerism and buying process, which doesn't apply, but it does, is they see the Walmarts, the Targets, the Macy's of the world being successful because they offer more shit than humans can buy in any one lifetime. And they're like, oh, well, that's how you do business. And it's actually, that's not how you do successful business. That's not how you take big bets. That's not how you get on the hockey stick of growth. They were founded at a different time with different rationale, and that's not how you actually build a business.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, I don't know the story of Walmart originally, but I don't know if they sold everything under the sun, at the beginning.
No, they grew into it. Yeah, they were a 5 and dime kind of store. Yeah.
I think their key was they were the first one to sell like everyday low price. Like we're just going to give you good value every day.
Yeah.
Versus
but competing. Oh, sure. But competing on price and the race to the bottom is also not the way to build a business. Yeah. Walmart, Macy's, they were built, their wealth was built in concentration when the economy and buying was completely different than it is today. So again, not that they're same, but from a team perspective, the individuals on your team, your decision, your big bet was completely counterintuitive to what they know about buying.
Yes. And it wasn't easy. We had battles. Like I'm not the dictator CEO who tells everyone I need to get their buy-in. There's only 12 of us.
Yeah.
And I don't want to move forward unless I get everybody's buy-in. And those are long arguments, because when you're not succeeding, everyone all of a sudden decides that they're the head of marketing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're succeeding, then the head of marketing is the only one who knows marketing. It's a science. If you're not succeeding, the head of marketing sucks, and everyone can do that marketing person's job, and they feel
Oh, hell
entitled to give their
yes.
opinion, right?
Yes.
It's so amazing.
Oh my God, yes. Woo. That and
Yeah,
sales too, I
like
think.
literally,
It's not
I had,
exempt.
I had developers like wordsmithing marketing campaigns at that point.
No. No. I mean, I believe you, but
But
no.
it's hard to say no. What do you know when the way we've been doing it wasn't working?
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. I love it. I got to use that line again and again, Juan. I love that. Truer words have not been spoken today for sure. All right. So you had pressures from external, not like forcible ones, but you were, the lay of the land was telling you this is not the way. And then you present it to your team and your team is saying, no, we're comfortable here. Like, look at us in our little couch that we bought on $1.5 million revenue. Like, we're doing good. Like, this is a nice couch. Come on, let's stay here, Juan. Walk me through the following year or so, and you were able to get your team on board. Who turned over, not specifically who turned over, but what types of people turned over, and who do you have now that's fully on board?
Yes, I mean, we basically transitioned like 3 out of the 12, and then we have the other 9 still with us and have another 3. So we're about 12 people, and everyone's gung-ho about the direction we're headed. It's a more focused message. Companies get it, clients get it. We don't even have to do a demo, and a client understands what we do. Same with investors. We had to retool everything. New investor deck, for our capital raise, new marketing, new website. And by the way, all the while, we do still have these old clients that we have to kind of pull them through.
Sure.
And still support them, even though some of them are using the recruiting tool, some of them are using the whole culture, the management culture as a service tool. So there's a little complexity there on the customer support side. But we now have a very clear message. We just won top product of the year for HR tech within the category of team collaboration by Breakthrough Products. We won a Culture of the Year product for collaboration. So we're winning these awards again. We have about 5 awards in the last 6 months of this year. We've closed some large deals. We closed the master service agreement with Accenture so that all 700,000 employees at Accenture, as they roll it out, will be using our tool for better collaboration. And then,
wow,
it's huge, life-changing type deal. And then they're going to resell our product to their clients where they think, have the same challenges around collaboration as they do, large 2,000 person companies. So things have gone well. And, as a leader, there's always challenges on getting everyone to follow and going in the same direction. Now, a 12-person company is not the same as 20,000 employees. So there's only 2 layers in my company, my direct reports, and then like the dev team. And I'm often in touch with the dev team. So it's easy to lead and get everybody marching the same way when you're seeing everybody every week, all the time.
Sure.
On video, because we're 12 people in 12 cities. So it's video.
Yeah. You're trying to collaborate in the same way you're trying to bring collaborative services to everyone else. Yeah. You get that pain. So what do you see as the future ahead for your company and more specifically your team? Because you all have pivoted through something together. You created a common enemy that wasn't a forced common enemy in order to rally around and move into the future with.
Yeah, everyone's motivated. We now know that in the different iterations of our company and the product and positioning and the problem we solve, this one that we're currently at is the best one to bet on, is the one that will take us to the promised land. Now, it doesn't mean that there might not be some other pivot, although I don't want another pivot. It would be crazy for me to say, this is it, this is the one. I until we exit the company, I can't say that, although this one has the best probability. There are some future roadmap things, though, that could really be game changers. One of them includes ChatGPT and this whole like generative AI. Several clients and venture capital firms, VCs that are looking to invest in us, have asked us how that will impact our business, right? Because in the SWOT analysis, it's always like threats and opportunities, and usually it's competitive. There's always gonna be some competitors trying to copy us. I'm less concerned about that. But ChatGPT, it's a real what's the word? It's a real ethical dilemma, because we're trying to make everyone more emotionally intelligent and make everyone more understanding of others.
Yes.
And so in an email, for instance, if somebody uses our tool, they will click a button and it'll say, if I'm writing to Stephanie Crevens, for instance, I'll click on Smarter Collaboration. It'll suggest tips that I will read, I will understand, and I will then think on how I can understand Stephanie better and produce a better email.
Yes.
So with ChatGPT, it changes that, where this is a world of Twitter, 25 characters, young people, and even people our generation,
Sure.
they don't want to think. And so even tips that make someone think on how should I write an email is a little bit too much for, even if it's only 10 emails a month out of the thousands they write that are really important.
Sure.
Because it's not meant for every email. It's for the important ones that you really want to influence someone or be really inclusive for someone. But imagine a world where you don't actually think and you just write the email like you would, and then you click our button, and then the email magically gets rewritten for the best way to get received by the audience or the person you're writing to. It would be very effective. You would end up having a better collaboration. You'd have everybody better understanding each other, but you're actually not helping the sender of the email become more emotionally intelligent. And they're not becoming a better person. And in a way, that's kind of the purpose and the mission of our company. And so do we forego our mission of making people more understanding and better human beings just for the business purpose of better collaboration? Because that would stay the same.
Yeah.
Or do we forego the development of human souls and just make it easy? And we actually are coming out with a prototype which does that and makes it easy. And we are thinking making it optional for each company, because some companies would want it to be simple and they don't care if their employees become better people. And some companies actually want that same mission and vision we have. We're actually going to make it optional, and you could do one or the other. And so a little more work to have two types of products like that, but that's the direction we're taking now. But that's a huge change, because even from an advertising perspective, imagine how ChatGPT can change the way you write emails at work, and then boom. I mean, like that'd be pretty big.
Yeah, the rate conversion on that ad, I think, would be really high. I'd be like, what? Yeah, I definitely see the dilemma and applaud you for tackling that. That makes sense. Last question. I'll let you get back to changing your part of the world here. Next time a pivot like this has to come up, because the world is uncertain, there are technologies that will exist in 10 years that we haven't even dreamed of yet. What will you know about being a CEO of a company that needs to pivot, because in your intuition, from business data, from softer forces that it has to happen for the business to be successful? What will you do differently? And what do you know now that you can use in the future?
That's a tough question to answer.
This is why I have no friends. I ask questions like this.
Last time I come on to her podcast.
She made me think, damn it.
Let's see. I think just being experienced with it, I'll kind of intuitively know when I need to pivot or when I need to consider it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way I've been trained in business is to take my ego and my attachment out of decision process. So I am better than most because I've been trained this way to not hold on to something and apply this concept of sunk cost to something and say, look, this is the reality of where we are today. Like there was value 3 years ago in that. There's not value now. Either close shop, change, or sell and get bought, right? And so just always being open to that as something that could come up at any time. Not waiting for the annual review in December to think, okay, what should we do? I mean, it doesn't work that way, right? It could happen at any moment.
Yes.
Neither of our two pivots were predictable. Happened at a good time. It's never a good time.
Nope.
This chat GPT in a way is another pivot. It's not as constant. It's kind of enabling our product get even better potentially. But that came out of the blue, and now it's like everyone's talking about it. There's even a guy in Germany I met once, which I think the universe presented him to me to scare me about future pivots and how it's kind of crazy. Let's say I create a company that's worth $500 million in the technology we have today with what we've built. And it is very plausible. I mean, if Grammarly's worth $13 billion, I mean, what we do right now, should be worth $20 billion. I mean, we had a hell of a lot more value than Grammarly, because you can write a grammatically correct email at work and still piss the hell out of 30% of the people receiving your emails. Right? So like, and that's a real statistic. That 30% of emails are misunderstood and cause confusion, piss people off. Grammarly ain't going to change that number, right? And so
only 30%, based on what my clients tell me. It's like every single one they read. Yeah. Everyone I read is, look at that tone.
It's a US statistic, but I bet you even working cross-border, it's even worse, right? Because every time I work with people in France, why is that American writing this way? Why is that French person, like, it's even crazier? And so there's this, imagine, let's say 10 billion. Let's say I get this company $10 billion. To know that the value of my company at 10 billion can go to zero instantly, because there's a guy I met that if his technology ever sees the light of day, it would make obsolete all personality tests and make obsolete all products like mine. And to know that I need to jump off the ship before this guy's product comes to light. Now, part of it, this guy has an ancient wisdom that only he has, and he is a complete hot mess in his way, that there's a low probability that he'll ever be able to commercialize it. But it's one of these things where he just doesn't know the right people. But what if he bumped into the right company? But this guy, he basically was tapped on the shoulder walking at a campus in Germany as an 18-year-old or 20-year-old with an old Chinese man with a cane who came from China. And the man goes, "Sir, I want to teach you ancient Chinese wisdom." This is what the guy told me, and I didn't believe him at first. It was like 5 years ago.
I'll say, this sounds like a wild story, but
it's a wild story. And so he goes, "Look, in China, we have lines on face, just like reading hand. We have lines on face which tell you everything about a person's personality, what they would be good at, their strengths, their weaknesses, their psychology, everything about the person. We can tell you who would be good as a defender in soccer versus a striker." Anyways, this guy ended up spending 20 years learning from this Chinese guy before he died, and is now the fourth most wise man in the world of this ancient Chinese wisdom of facial lines and personality types. And so he can run through a picture. So forget giving a personality test of 10 minutes to Stephanie. He can just find a picture of you and know everything about you. That technology actually already exists.
I bet it does.
Now,
I mean, I'm skeptical. If you're listening in, you can't see my eyebrows, but I'm skeptical. But okay.
I ran every one of my team's human intelligence personality tests against the pictures he took off LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it was 90% accurate.
Okay.
So, that exists. We could become a $10, $13 billion company, but that could put us out of business. So knowing that there's, one thing is thinking, oh, well, there's something could come around. Another thing is knowing that the enemy or the thing that's my kryptonite that's going to destroy all values around the corner at any moment that already exists. It's kind of weird. It kind of gives me the ability to pivot easier, because I know that doomsday could really happen any day. I think a lot of CEO and leaders they think they're the best or their company's the best and nobody's going to figure it out. I think feeling vulnerable keeps me on my toes more than most leaders. And I kind of want to thank that German Chinese trained guy that I met randomly in California for that.
Oh, yeah, I love that, because it's you're right. Too many CEOs think that every year is going to be a banner year. Every year is going to have growth. Every year is going to, their sales team's going to knock it out of the park. Every year, fill in the blank. And it's things like the pandemic, the 2008 recession, the 2001 recession, and the tech bubble burst and all the things. Those are the things that knock entrepreneurs on their ass, that think, oh, it's always going to be great. No, there are cycles. There's cycles to the economy.
There's cycles. It's ups and downs. It's knowing how to play those ups and downs as a leader.
Yeah.
I cut some employees recently this year because the economy was horrible. I saw things going down, and it was so easy to just keep paying everybody and having a sales and marketing organization. But I'm like, you know what? Things are slow right now. I'm going to make that hard decision earlier rather than later. And it was a hard decision. These guys had been with me for a while, but you have no choice. So just being nimble, agile, and making tough choices as well is part of it.
Yep. Last question. I want to know, so A lot of employees misunderstand the role of their top level leader as someone that's rooted in the day to day and the process and, just looking the next quarter forward. And the most successful leaders I know have one foot in today, but really like most of their mind in the next 3, 5 years. That's why we're always thinking about evolution and pivoting and what could happen, what will happen. But yeah. We got to get today done. What do you want mid-level leaders, other senior leaders that are too planted in today? And we're recording June 14th, 2023, right? Like they're just living in today and yesterday and why that guy pissed me off 10 years ago. And maybe I'll plan out next week. But the top level leader has to have the eye on the future. What do you want these other leaders to know about what it means to be in your seat, to make sure the company is ready for what happens in 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond?
That's an interesting question. I think it can't be answered as a blanket answer for all leaders because I think it depends on the size of the company, right?
Sure.
I worked at Fortune 500 Procter & Gamble. I mean, we had 5-year plans and you were going to be accountable for thinking 5 years out. And you had the breadth and the time and things were kind of under control. Imagine a boat that's just humming along, right? There was, Procter & Gamble 5% margin,
not known for their innovation, but yes.
but innovation in like detergents, right? Like it's not like flying cars, but they were number one in household goods and beauty products for 100 years because they are innovative in those categories, which are, it's not sexy, but it is innovation, right? And so, but the boat's kind of going in a certain direction. As long as population grows, they're going to do okay. And so you could spend time for 3 weeks researching something for a future product and putting money aside to do that R&D, right? R&D, like division, like most startups. So that's one extreme. The other extreme, startups, leaders of startups always do seem focused on the now. And it's hard to get out of that is because the boat's not just coasting forward. The boat has a hole. Oh my God, there's not enough money to repair that engine. Oh my God, but we still got to go forward. And oh my God, we just had somebody quit. And oh my gosh, the product's not working. We've got a client complaint. And the boat can get sinked and it's not really going straight. And R&D team, Procter & Gamble has like a 20,000 person R&D team just focused on the future products. At a startup, the CEO is the R&D or the head of sales who's just with clients getting feedback. So there's a lot of structure to create that space to think long term. So I think when it's small, it really is hard to think more than 1 or 2 quarters out. Like when I started the startup, having come from the Procter & Gambles and the Decathlons and the Pumas, I had a 5-year plan. I had it broken down by month. My spreadsheets were like so. And like, VCs would be like, wow, Juan, you're so detailed on all these things for 5 years out. How do you know it's going to happen? And I can assure you after like 3 years, I was not even close to any of my predictions on anything. And so I went to the other extreme. Like, you know what, as a startup, I'm just going to do a 1-year plan. If somebody asked me for years 2, 3, 4, 5 on revenue forecast, new product, like I have no idea. It could go any way based on one customer, 2 customers, like one customer could be 40% of your revenue. At Procter & Gamble, one customer is nothing, right? Like, so I think that question really depends. It is great to think ahead. I do it just because of my training and my fear of becoming obsolete or some competitor coming out and just trying to be always like, there was a phrase I use all the time for like 3 years. Oh yeah, people are like, don't you want people to sign an NDA or why are you showing your product on your website? Why are you showing it? And I said, because you can copy our products today, but you can't copy our innovation. Like we're always gonna be innovating and one step ahead. And so they can try to copy what we have, but within 6 months we'll be coming out with something new. So copying doesn't create innovation. We are the innovators. And I look at every employee in my company as the innovator. It's not a separate R&D group. I don't have a head of innovation, which a lot of big companies do. My sales guy or girl, if they are hearing something that the customers want a lot, that's our innovative idea, right? Same with my product manager or engineers, my marketing person, me, if I'm at a conference and I see something. So I think it's really being open to everyone being head of innovation at a small company and as the leadership being open to hearing all those ideas. Because you're going to get 190, you're going to suck. But those 10 that sound good kind of pull that thread.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I would say in any organization, even if you're a smaller subset of a larger organization, for the top level leader, let's say it's the CIO or the CMO, to tell everyone and hire for, this is a culture of innovation. You are the head of innovation. That is a different culture than other places that tend to stay more stale, and they can innovate more quickly. And they need every person to take on that responsibility.
Yeah.
Not the responsibility of marketing, because we got marketing people. You ain't a
Yes.
marketer. Take on the responsibility of being an innovator.
Yeah, like how can our company do better? And if you have an idea, you'll never know where that idea comes from.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for sharing your experiences and your wisdom and your training with us today. And I'm sure our paths will continue to cross.
Well, I learned it all on ChatGPT, so I actually don't even run a company.
You stop.
That would be really funny.
That will be funny.
That with I slept in a Holiday Inn.
Way to go, Juan. You're killing it.
Well, thanks for having me, Stephanie. This has been great.
Thank you. I have been saying since the start of the pandemic, why did it take a global pandemic to force the change that we saw in our companies during that time? Obviously, Juan's example in human intelligence, was a forced change because of zero demand. But so many companies were able to activate transformation and business change because of a pandemic. And my premise to you is that you as a leader can create, drive, manage, force change because you are the leader who sets the vision, who lives both in the present, but mostly in the future for your organization. And I hope you heard that example with our friend Juan. We talked about so many different things, but when he said, what was forcing the change in the second pivot was his internal intuition, training, and the external data that was telling him what we got ain't quite it. And so I want to invite you, go out, get that external data that verifies or challenges what you're doing and how you're bringing value to the world to see if that's really it. And create space in your calendar to check in with your intuition to see if what we're doing as a team or an organization is really solving a valuable problem that other organizations put money behind to solve. There's lots of problems to be solved, but are you solving the problems that have investable assets behind them? Time, resources, money, people, etc. And I love this notion of knowing whether or not you're a vitamin or a painkiller. As a very optimistic person, I like to think of our services as vitamins, right? These are proactive, these are preventative. But the reality is when leaders finally bring us in for their change management and digital transformation challenges, we're acting as a painkiller. And I'm okay with that for now, but I would love to see us be in a more proactive place with our clients and those that we serve. And I'd love to see you too get your team to a place where they can manage themselves proactively by being a vitamin for your organization, not the painkiller. All right, my friend. Now let's get back to impactful work that changes your part of the world, and I'll see you soon.